Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of Seconds Out Live. I'm your host in the main hot seat, Ayman Khan. With me is, of course, the young blood, blooding him in. Well, it's been a while, Josh Hart, that is, that you've been on Seconds Out. We've been pitching and finding other replacements, but we haven't been able to be graced by your presence. How you feeling?
I'm very good, Ayman. Very happy to be back. I know it's been a while. I can only apologise for that. We've had some...
Too long.
Some would say too long, yes. We've had some things going on in the background, but hopefully it's the start of me returning regularly now. So, yeah, happy to be back.
Things always go on in the background, don't they? They never go on in the foreground. What's that all about?
Listen, I like to move in silence here. I'm not going to reveal any reasons as to why I've been absent. But hopefully, if all goes well, I'll be returning regularly, hopefully, by next week.
Moving in silence doesn't quite fit for Seconds Out Live. You got to be loud, brash. You got to make big statements like talking about returns to the ring at the grand old age of 45 for Manny Pacquiao and even older for Chris Eubank Sr. We'll get to that in a moment. First of all, I want to talk to you about the chat. This doesn't work. Seconds Out Live does not work without your contributions in the chat, by the way of a thumbs up, by the way of a subscription. If you haven't already done that, it's free, costs nothing. Even might get Josh back onto Seconds Out Live next week. And also your questions in the chat, we read them out. And if you're not watching this live, you're watching this on replay, put them in the chat box afterwards as well in the comment section. We'll get to them, as many as we can too. So feel free to put those in and offer your contributions in any way, shape, or form. Chris Eubank Sr. has offered a big contribution, and he's put out on his channel called Chris Eubank. I implore everyone to go check that out after, of course, you've watched Seconds Out Live. And he said that, look, in no kind of way that he really wants his son to return to the ring. He wants that to be his sunset, his swan song, that moment where both of them walked out onto the stadium platform and had their beautiful entrance, and Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn fought, and Eubank Jr. had his hand raised. That's the curtain call for Eubank Jr.'s career. And if he decides to come back to the ring, they're now a pair, they're an item, and Eubank Sr. will return back to the pro game too. Well, it might not be the pro game, it might be an exhibition of some form, but donning on the gloves once again. A few years back, if you cast your mind back to, Nigel Benn was going to fight in Birmingham against Sakio Bika, and that didn't happen. Thankfully, that didn't happen. But Josh, what do you think about the return potentially of Chris Eubank Sr., the charismatic, enigmatic figure of Eubank Sr.? We'd like to see him entertain. We'd like to be ringside and watch him entertain once again.
I mean, I wasn't there ringside for any of Chris Eubank Sr.'s fights.
Why was that?
I wasn't born, actually. I wasn't born, Ayman.
Didn't get media accreditation for that one.
I think that wasn't big enough at the time, so I didn't have the incredible backing of Seconds Out to get me ringside there. But no, personally, I don't really see any real reason for it. And like for Junior to fight on, I can understand why he wants him to retire. You know, he's had some tough fights now. That last one was very tough and had some really tough impacts after the fight. We saw, you know, we've seen him on the Diary of a CEO podcast where he said he was in hospital for 2 days after the fight due to severe dehydration. So I can understand why he wants to see his son retire. But if Junior is to fight on and have another fight, we know he's not going to have many more. That's the simple fact of the matter. Is there's not many left for him out there. You've probably got the Conor Benn rematch and then a fight with Canelo if that really appeals to people. But I just don't see. I don't have any interest in seeing Eubank Sr. return, even if it's just for an exhibition. You know, who do you put? Do you try to get Nigel Benn back out and get Nigel Benn out and have an exhibition with him as well? But apart from that, is there really anything there for it? There's not really much to sell off it. It's just, maybe you can have them share the same card, but still, once your time's up, your time's up. Boxing's a young man's sport, and Eubank Sr., who's already done a hell of a lot in the sport, I don't see any reason for him to come back, even if it's just at an exhibition level. It's not something that takes my fancy. I'd rather just see him stay on the sidelines, keep doing what he's doing with the Call Chris Eubank channel, and just staying away from the boxing ring. If anything but getting back in the ring, please.
Let me pitch it to you this way, Josh, because you're saying you wouldn't want to see an exhibition, but Mayweather came back in a number of exhibitions, has been doing this exhibition sort of tour, waiting for one this year. I think he last had the rematch with John Gotti the third, didn't he? But I remember having not seen any of Mayweather's professional career at all, apart from on the screen. And then I got the opportunity to, I think it was my first gig at Seconds Out, actually, with Frank, who's it's not Modfather Vinny behind the scenes today. It's Frank who's stepping in to help keep Seconds Out going. So big thumbs up for Frank as well, too, to get your Seconds Out live fix, if that's something that you were fixing for. But yeah, Frank, myself and Frank went over to Dubai for Mayweather versus Deji. And whilst I get, of course, it's not Mayweather and his pomp, and he's against Deji, and he's not really going to take it seriously, and he's probably there just for the money. You still, at least from a reporter's perspective, journalist perspective, just getting to sit ringside and watch someone do or show some forms of what little glimpses of what they used to be is quite cool. It's quite interesting. And from that point of view, and then I saw him fight Chalmers as well too in a less than half filled, I think it was O2 Arena, disappointingly. But Eubank Sr., I would say, like, if you knew Eubank, there would be no health repercussions to it. If it was done in a safe way, and you could see Eubank Sr. entertain in some form and get to see with your own eyes what he was about, would that tempt you in any way to want to see him return to the ring? Or do you think this is literally just a barrier for him to put up to make sure that his son doesn't return?
I still think Chris Eubank Jr. will return. If it meant, if like let's say he was to return and I was guaranteed to be there ringside, then yeah, of course I'd entertain it, you know.
And the health stuff, of course, Josh.
Yeah, and the health stuff as well, obviously, and that as well. Not just the ringside access, but definitely the health stuff. But no, if that, let's say that was all guaranteed, then yeah, I'd be there, because not many people get to say that they've sat ringside for a Eubank Senior fight, you know. And it would just be a cool experience, but can we guarantee any of that? Boxing, I don't really think you can guarantee good health at any moment, because it's boxing. It's a dangerous sport. And then me getting to sit ringside again, that's not guaranteed. You know, Ayman, you're the senior reporter here. I'm sure if you wanted it, you'd probably get it. I'm just ready to sub in at any moment. If you want to bring me along, though, I wouldn't say no. But yeah, I don't know. I'm always a bit on the edge with these exhibition fights. I'm not like all these ones that Mayweather's had. I think the only one that I took interest in was Deji, and that's because I've also grown up watching that YouTube scene where I've watched Deji for a long time, which was an entertaining factor to it. But the ones against like Chalmers, John Gotti the third, I've never had much interest in them. There's something with exhibitions that I just don't quite enjoy. They don't have that same feel as a fight itself, because it's always like, oh yeah, they just share the ring and then there's no winner called at the end. I don't know. It doesn't take my fancy. I'm not the biggest fan of it all, so. Yeah, if it happens, it happens. I'm sure I'll still tune in. I'll still watch it, but I definitely won't be losing any sleep over the fact if it doesn't happen.
I won't be surprised if Eubank Sr. ended up being a Jake Paul opponent in the not too distant future. I've got a poll coming out for you guys. I've sent it over to my father, Frank, and it's just a quick snapshot poll. I wanted to ask you guys in the chat, do you want to see Eubank Sr. return to the ring? Simply put, for simply the best, as he walked out, to a yes or a no. This is all in the proviso that it would be both fighters that were involved, Eubank Sr. being one of them, and whoever be on the opposite side to him, were all healthy and came out of it healthy. Would you want to see him return to the ring? I think he wants to capitalize upon a lot of the spotlight he's getting, and the Eubank name specifically, if you're named senior or junior, being very much a hot commodity right now, and people are wanting a slice of Chris, and can get that slice of him on his YouTube channel. But would they buy a ticket? I'd say now more than ever, outside of course, his pro career, people want to see Eubank in action and entertain. That's, of course, if he is as well, not just the health coming out of it, but healthy going into it. Those are some things that I think Eubank Senior specifically is open to. So let's jump into the chat and see what you guys are saying. DB Cooper 1 says, crikey, will the sheriff himself be joining us on the live today? The door is, of course, open if Eubank Senior ever wanted to join, especially off the back of our last conversation. But I don't think he's quite listening today, unfortunately. But if he is, welcome to come on for sure. I know one person was certainly listening. That was the chicken connoisseur, and we had a good interaction and opened the door to him as well too. So maybe you get the chicken connoisseur on another day. Are you a chicken connoisseur fan, Josh?
Yeah, I actually quite like his content. It's you know when you're waiting for your dinner to arrive and you want to get in the mood, I think put chicken connoisseur on, see some lovely lovely food. Just gets me in the mood ready for my dinner. So yeah, I'm a big fan.
Ed Jones says, okay, what is happening? Seconds Out Live is happening. Get with the program. We're here ready to answer your questions. Ed Jones also says, hi, guys. What's up, Ed? Good to see you. We also put in the chat, welcome, everyone. Leave your questions and comments here in the chat. Feel free to do so. David MC says, Eubank Sr versus Nigel Benn 3. There you go. That's the pitched fight that's been put forward by the contributors this week. Eubank Sr versus Nigel Benn. We just had that legacy or generational fight between the two families in the form of Junior and Conor Benn. Maybe we'll see a return with the originators of the rivalry. Martin Mulligan, good to see you. Martin says, old men should just leave the boxing alone. Well, they don't seem to be. You've had Oscar De La Hoya, who, but for, I think, an illness, it might even be COVID he contracted, was looking to return to the ring. We had Mike Tyson in against Jake Paul. Manny Pacquiao is coming back in a legitimate world title fight against Mario Barrios at the ripe old age of 45, coming in for a professional boxing match. Who else have we had? We had Evander Holyfield, which are devastating, and quite frankly, it was I want to hold back the words, but it was shameful seeing, and not in the shame from Evander Holyfield, but putting that fight on wasn't the correct way to go. And thankfully, Evander Holyfield didn't suffer any real harm because he had no place being in the boxing ring. You have heavyweight fighters who are still going on. Kubrat Pulev is still active, and I think he holds the WBA regular title as well. So there's definitely room for boxers and boxing going on at the older stage of your career. It's just whether you can cash in on your name. David MC also says it would make millions. I reckon it would make a lot of money. Ricky Hatton fought Barrera, didn't he? Ricky made a return to the ring against, was it Sinchenko, and lost. And that was in the pro game. And then he came back a couple of years back. They had it on the Boxers show, didn't they? And it was just an exhibition against Marco Barrera, and he lost a ton of weight. And that was a good cause. That was. I think those sort of reasons, and those sort of, if you patch it up and package it like they did with Ricky, I think it becomes a lot more palatable than what we're offered right now. I think when boxing and when returns are pitched the way that they are right now, in against Jake Paul, where you're cashing in your record for that payday and it can make millions, that's not very well liked by hardcore boxing fans. The return of Manny Pacquiao for the back of a defeat and years outside of the ring. He lost to Ugas, didn't he? Then Ugas got soundly beaten by Mario Barrios, and now Pacquiao is in with Barrios for a world title after not being in the rankings for many years. Those sort of things aren't palatable for boxing fans. But if you patch it up like Ricky, and it's almost that little bit like harmless in a sense. Obviously, it's never harmless when you step into a boxing ring, but when both fighters have an understanding of what this is, I think it's a lot more palatable to boxing fans. And that might be the route in which a boxing fight for Eubank Sr. might be able to work and work around. Certainly, though, I don't know if you saw this, Josh. I spoke with Frank Warren earlier, and he said that whoever puts it on should be ashamed, and it wouldn't get licensed if it did go ahead. Would you see it as that much of a? Would you be that affected by it if Eubank Sr. was to return? Would you say, like, look, this is something that I don't think would go ahead, even though I guess ringside access was something you wanted, but if you were concerned about it, that it was a professional fight, a sanctioned fight, would you not look to be involved in any way?
Yeah, if he comes back in a professional element, then yeah, I tend to agree with what Frank Warren's saying there. Like even talk about the Manny Pacquiao stuff and him coming back to fight for a world title, I think that's outrageous. I just don't think at 46, not having won a fight in 6 years and fought in nearly 4 years now, I don't know how you can come back straight into a world title fight. It makes no sense to me. And to all these fighters who have been sat in these rankings for so long, to just have Manny Pacquiao, who legend of the game, don't get me wrong, but where's the equalness, and where's the fair share for the other fighters who have been in those rankings for so long? But back to Eubank, yeah, if they return him in the way that Ricky Hatton came back against Barrera on the Boxer card, I'm all for that. I'm absolutely all for that, because that was a very fair, very friendly, just nice way for Ricky to, I guess, get that chance to really say goodbye to the Manchester fans. Obviously, he wanted to do that with his final fight. I can't remember the name, but he lost. And that night kind of just seemed like a proper farewell to boxing for him in the ring element. If we could see something like that for Eubank Sr., happy days. I'll go and watch it. It's a nice little night. So I guess you could celebrate the Eubank name. But if it's coming back in a professional element, even just over 8 rounds, there's professional rules as well. I'm not having it where you say, oh, it's a professional fight, but similar to Jake Paul, Mike Tyson, there's all these different rules and things that have been twisted to make it a little bit more fair. If you're going to come back in the professional sense, you've got to go with the professional rules. And that's the last thing we want to see. I don't want to see Chris Eubank Sr. have a professional boxing match at this age. Even though he does seem like a relatively healthy individual, seems like, there's no major health concerns since he's retired from the sport. But like a lot of people say, boxing's a young man's game. You've had your time in the sport. He's had his time at the top. I know he wants to capitalise on this spotlight that's around the name at the moment. But I think there's too many risks to bring Eubank Sr. back in a professional element.
That is the problem with boxing, especially when you have that taste of the highest highs when it comes to the accolades, the stardom, the fame, even the walkout recently. When you get the adulation of the crowd and the moments that you can create, you get a little bit of a retaste of that intoxicating flavor. And suddenly the want and desires all come flushing and running, flooding back. I should even say, I suppose, flushing back. But that might be the reason as to why Eubank Sr. is suddenly looking to return to the ring. Or maybe it is on the merit of wanting to provide another barrier to stop his son and making that recent moment his hallmark and signature moment to leave on. That won't be, though, the signature or hallmark moment or the wave goodbye for Anthony Joshua, his crushing defeat to Daniel Dubois. Anthony Joshua is in the headlines again, not for making any headlines or signing anything on the dotted line just yet, but closing in on a contract. The belief is to be a 2-fight deal with the Saudis, with Riyadh season for his comeback fights, with a number of fights pitched. But with the signals we get right now off of the back of what appears to be a successful surgery he's had on his elbow, and I've seen more videos online of him punching with the one arm, and I guess the other arm is the the one that had the surgery operated upon his elbow, so he couldn't quite move that yet, but he was back punching in Oman, I think he was, and maybe even Saudi Arabia closing in on those deals. But Joshua is going to be back. What fights would you like to see for him?
I think the obvious fight I'm going to get out there is Tyson Fury. It's been spoke about for so long now. We've been up and down this year of thinking whether the fight's going on or not, and hearing dates and hearing locations, and it's close now. It's not now. It's not happening. It's going to happen in July. Now it's not going to happen until October. Now it's not happening until next year. Just get the fight made. Just it's been spoke about, not even just recently, for years upon years upon years, to the point where this fight was spoke about for undisputed at one point. Now it's more just a legacy fight. They've both fought some of the greatest of their era. Just go out and have 2 fights. If these 2 fights can be just 2 fights between them, happy days. Even if it's a really one-sided first fight, give them a second fight anyway, because it's what they deserve. I think the names that we're seeing linked with this 2-fight deal, though, I read an article on Boxing Scene, and it was Dillian White and Jared Anderson as the names linked in the deal. And I don't know, Dillian White, sure, again, it's not quite Tyson Fury, but there's a selling point to that fight. There's history between the two, which I don't mind. Jared Anderson, I really don't know where that's come from. I don't know why they think it's a good fight to make, or what is there to gain from beating Jared Anderson, especially when the one time he did step up properly. I know he's fought likes of Charles Martin and everything, but fought a live Martin Bacoli. He got dominated. That's the only way to go about it. He got dominated. I'm not too sure what there is to gain unless they just see that as the confidence builder fight. But can you look at someone like Jared Anderson and say, yeah, he's just a confidence builder, when we don't know what we're going to expect from Jared Anderson if that fight is to get made? I doubt that does happen. But yeah, I'm intrigued by the 2 fights they've said, unless they're just throwing them out there to distract us that the Fury fight might be getting made, and they've just thrown those two names in the mix. I don't know. I'd like to see the Fury fight, but I think we'll probably see Dillian White first, then Fury, if AJ gets through Dillian.
Let me throw some names at you, Josh. We'll get a hot take from you whilst you react to these names. So let's start off with Zhilei Zhang. That was a fight that was rumored for many of years. A lot of talk about it happening maybe in China and things like that, but that doesn't seem likely. But Zhang has said that he's going to return to the ring. Would you like to see AJ in with Zhilei Zhang?
I'd be interested in that fight, yeah. I think there's a good selling point to it. We know what they both bring. I'd happily watch that fight.
AJ in with his good friend, but looking for a 50th and final fight, Derek Chisora.
I'd like it for Derek because you'll get a great payday to go out on, but there's the health implications. There's a lot of AJ's not exactly got pillow fists. He's probably one of those devastating punches in the division still, so not too sure on that one. If it gets made, I wouldn't moan too much, but there's better fights out there and definitely more safer fights for Derek to take.
In against, off of the back of a victory over Joe Joyce, Filip Hrgović.
Yeah, I'd be interested.
In against British compatriot Lawrence Okoli.
No, I'd like to see Okoli face Dillian White instead before he starts going for those top dogs. I would, again, I'd be slightly interested, but not as interested as I am with other names.
A 2-fight deal that off of the back of the surgery, we're hearing that AJ won't be out until later on this year, but returning, I think, this month in a fight that when I spoke to Richard Torres, who'd fought Tyler Herndon, said he will probably get through Tyler Herndon. Deontay Wilder, we'll see if he's got anything left against Herndon, but a much talked about fight, rewind 4 or 5 years ago. This was one of the fights, if not the fight to make with Tyson Fury is still out of the picture. What about AJ and Wilder?
Yeah, again, spoke about for too long now. We're hearing that Wilder's in a good place again. He's refound confidence when I spoke to his trainer, Malik Scott. So yeah, see how Wilder looks at the end of the month against Herndon. And if all goes well, then sign me up for AJ versus Wilder, because I think that fight is very likely to happen if all goes well.
And I got 2 last names for you. The one fight that never was because, well, maybe people will be annoyed at me for pitching this name because of his reputation outside of the ring, but Jarrell Miller, that was a feisty back and forth between the two of them, but never materialized, and Andy Ruiz got the opportunity of a lifetime and left his mark on the sport. But what about AJ and Jarrell Miller?
I'd be up for that just because I know there's still bad blood there. It'd be a really heated, interesting, engaging build-up. And we know what Jarrell Miller brings and we know what AJ brings, so I think it'd make for a good fight on the night as well. So if we can get that fight, that's definitely higher up the list than a lot of the fights that have been mentioned here.
And the final name, I wonder where this features on your list. The trilogy. The first fight was an epic. The second fight wasn't as much of an epic, but that leaves the third one to be made, and that is Andy Ruiz. There's history between the two of them.
I don't think there's as much interest for that one. I'm just seeing what we've seen from Andy Ruiz as of late. Nah, not right now. Maybe Andy needs to come back and build up some good wins, but I don't think he beat Jarrell Miller, or even deserves a draw against Jarrell Miller last year. If Andy can come back and rack up some good wins, go for it. But right now, I think Andy Ruiz is completely out of the picture right now. I don't think there's anyone really screaming and begging for an Andy Ruiz return.
I think that with Anthony Joshua coming back, I think that's a lot of... I think it gives a boost to the heavyweight division because of his standing and what he brings to the sport. But not only that, in terms of the eyes he brings, I wonder that, and I imagine that a lot of the heavyweights would be happy that he is coming back and there is fights on the table for him, because he is one of the money makers, movers and shakers in the division. Him and Tyson Fury probably are the money right now with respect to the current title holders in Dubois and Alexander Usyk. I think if contenders could pitch themselves against fighters and say they had a belt as well too, they'd want it to be someone like a Fury fighting for a belt against them, or fighting against Joshua if they had the belt too. And if not, maybe take that money as well too, because they've got to make the money in the sport as well. So I think a lot of the contenders and holders of titles will be very happy with that. And I think obviously the heavyweight division is in a state of waiting, that not quite limbo, but that wait for the undisputed titles to, or the undisputed match to take place has happened. The rematch has happened now, and now the defense of that undisputed titles with Daniel Dubois to recreate undisputed heavyweight champion for the second time, whether it be Usyk or Dubois, is also going to happen. And the status of those titles, don't know what the status is. We imagine with Alexander Usyk saying that he's got 2 fights left and this is one of them, and he wants to pitch himself against either Fury or Joshua. I wonder why that is, not just because of the money as well too, but legacy is wrapped into that, as well as the history. But there is also the monetary factor to it. But that's going to take place as well. And then you're talking about 1 or 2 fights, and then where did the belts go? And you have people like Parker waiting, Ajit Kabial's waiting, Kurat Pulev holds a piece of the title. That means there's opportunities for titles to be grabbed for. And the likes of Joe Parker, I imagine, would like to have it. I think he'd fight at a push. He'd fight Tyson Fury because he was a replacement opponent. I believe it was stated or reported that he was for the Dillian White fight if White didn't turn up for any reason. But Joe Parker, I think, would have loved a slice of avenging his defeat to Anthony Joshua, especially with a belt, if the belt was on the line as well too. And then Ajit Kabial has been a person who's been waiting for his opportunities and has been impressing at every opportunity. Would be someone who would also look to pitch himself against AJ. So I think there's a lot of opportunities for world titles or fights with world title implications to take place for Anthony Joshua. But let me know in the chat as well too what you would like to see from AJ and whether you think Anthony Joshua could still contend at the highest level. That means, not just contend, but actually win a world title. A lot of people want to have conversations within the industry. A lot of people feel that Joshua's done a lot of bouncing between trainers. He's now with Ben Davison, but been with Robert Garcia and a number of other trainers as well too. Derek James is the one that was escaping my mind, but I just picked up now. But James, Garcia, Ben Davison, a lot of people felt that he'd done his best under Robert McCracken. Maybe might not pick a world title since leaving Robert, and also because the heavyweight division has moved on. But let me know what you think in the chat. Well, whilst we wait for your contributions, we'll move on to the next topic of conversation, and that is this weekend's action. We have a double head in terms of stadium shows. I'd love to see both stadium shows filled up to the rafters, because stadium shows just have that different feel to it, and it's great to see British boxing being healthy. In any form of stadium show, there's always that little bit of difference to them, a little bit of magic to them. And we've got 2 of them up north. You've got Barnsley with Callum Simpson vying for the European title. And down south, I believe it is in Ipswich, Fabio Wardley takes on Justice Hooney. He was supposed to be Joe Miller. He injured himself or got an injury. And then steps Justice Hooney. You might have thought he might have been in the Who Needs Him club, but Wardley wanted to find a replacement opponent to serve justice to the card. I hope you like that one, Josh. That one's for free for you. But yeah, we're kind of switching roles this week. But for Fabio Wardley, he's very much impressed in each and every opportunity that he's been given, especially off the back of the defeats over Fraser Clark and the way he dispatched Fraser in the second fight. Can he do the same to Justice, or do you think he's in a tougher and longer affair than he was in the rematch against Fraser?
I think he's in with a tough fight. I really do think Justice Hooney's going to bring something different that Fabio's not quite seen. Fabio's seen a lot of styles over his pro career so far, you know. But I just think Hooney's a very underrated fighter who is a very tidy boxer, but is also very heavy-handed as well. The one time we've seen Hooney properly step up was Kevin Lorena. And a really solid display until that 10th round when he got hurt. And if there was a bit more time, obviously it's a big what if. But if there was more time, I think Lorena would have got him out of there. But I've been impressed with Hooney so far. And speaking to him, I interviewed him over Zoom a few weeks ago. And he says, you know, even though this is a short notice fight, they still had I'd say a healthy amount of time to put a game plan together. But he's been in the gym, he's been ready, I know he's recently had an operation after his last fight to get a few little things sorted. So I expect to see the best Justice Hooney so far this weekend. However, I don't think that will be enough. I do see Fabio kind of dogging it out in a sense, and just while I feel he might get outboxed for portions of the fight, I do think he will eventually break Hooney and just get him out of there to the point where he beats him to the point where Hooney's not going to want to be there anymore. Or obviously we know the power that Fabio possesses, and I won't be shocked if he lands one of those big punches that puts Hooney down and out. But I'm really excited for the fight. Was more excited for the Miller fight, if I'm being truly honest. I think I can speak for a lot of people when I say that, but I think Hooney's a great replacement, and still not quite as excited, but still very excited for what's going to be taking place at Portman Road this Saturday.
Do you know that Justice Hooney had a nickname of the Blind Magician?
I did not know that. Do you know the origin of that? Because I'm intrigued to know that.
No, but maybe you can ask Gareth A. Davis when you next interview him.
Does he know the origin of it?
He might do.
I'll ask him tomorrow then. I'll shoot the message out tonight, get it arranged for tomorrow, and I'll see if Gareth knows.
Does there anything else take your fancy on that undercard? You got, of course, the debut of Lewis Richardson making his pro debut after capturing silver in the Olympics. You've also got Dillian White in an unconfirmed opponent just yet, but White makes his return as well too. Pierce O'Leary as well, who's been on a string of knockouts, I believe. But at least when he gets those knockouts, they're devastating knockouts, highlight reel knockouts as well. Anything else take your fancy on that undercard, Josh?
I'm excited for the debut of Lewis Richardson. Obviously, he was the only Olympian from Team GB last year to pick up a medal, alongside obviously Cindy as well. So yeah, excited for that. Dillian White's return, yeah, but I wouldn't really say it's a return, because we've seen him back in December anyway. So it's not like it's been 2-3 years since we've last seen Dillian White. We saw him at the back end of last year. But again, still, regardless, excited to see Dillian White fight. Sam Gilly, he's in a not as good a fight anymore. Was meant to be facing Louis Green for the British and Commonwealth titles, but Louis Green then pulled out. The board had then stated that Ishmael Davis had stepped in, but Ishmael supposedly, for some reason that fight's not happened. I guess Ishmael wasn't ready for the fight. So Sam Gilly sees himself in an 8-rounder at middleweight instead now. So if I had to pick my fight of the night, it would have been Gilly versus Green too. But away from that, I do like the Pierce O'Leary Liam Dillon fight. I think that'll be interesting. While it lasts, I do see Pierce O'Leary getting the stoppage ultimately, though. But no, it's not a bad undercard. Actually, one fight that's gone massively under the radar that could be good: Mike Perez versus Stephen Ward, a cruiserweight fight. That could be a very interesting fight. Stephen Ward coming into this off the back of a massive win in Belfast against Thomas McCarthy. So yeah, that's my pick for fight of the night on the undercard. But I think ultimately it is the Fabio Wardley show this weekend. So I think we all look forward to the entire card at Portman Road.
Jumping back into the chat, let's see what you guys are saying. Make sure to, and just give you a reminder, there is a poll going on, so make sure to place your votes into the poll. Do you want to see Eubank Sr. return to the ring? There's a comment here that was deleted, but I've since unveiled it. It's by LH. Who are these bums? LH, I think I know who you are, and it will be certainly getting a dig to the ribs again after our last spar. So look out for me, LH, taking another L. But anyway, Al Cuerpo Boxing says Nigel Benn already has CTE. According to Al Cuerpo, he needs to stay away from boxing. Eubank Sr., maybe 2 min rounds, 6 rounds, 16-ounce gloves, and headgear. That is the rules laid down by Al Cuerpo. Bad man in the bushes. Reveal yourself. You don't need to stay in the bushes unless that's where you prefer to be. Eubank Sr. still has it. Haven't seen anything to say that he does still have it in a boxing sense, but charisma, ability to sell, ability to talk, that little bit of magic certainly has that in spades, still does the older Eubank. MB, good to see you in here, MB. Hooney, decent amateur pedigree, but I don't think Wardley is going to allow him to box at his own pace. Is that the key to the fight from a Hooney perspective? And what pace is that as well? Because I'd offer in the back end of that Lorena versus Hooney fight or Hooney versus Lorena fight was a real good fight, and it really hotted up in those last 2 rounds because Hooney just seemed to not have anything left in the gas tank, and it was there for the taking for Lorraine if he could just put his punches together a little bit better. And Fabio's the type of guy that can put those punches together well. So very interesting down the stretch. It was still there down the stretch, and I expect it to be. MB also says, why has Dillian White still not got an opponent on fight week? It's a good question. I did ask Frank Warren in the interview over Zoom I did today, so do check that out. But I'll give you a spoiler for that question, how he answered it. And he said that they were just putting that together and it'll be announced. There were rumors, unconfirmed rumors, that maybe it might be Hemi Ohio, New Zealand boxer, I believe. Let me just double check if he is from New Zealand. Yeah, it's from New Zealand. Unconfirmed, just whispers about that. I'd imagine it would have been confirmed if it was him, but maybe they're looking to fight someone else. Either way, another fight on the comeback trail for Dillian White, who will look to want to improve off the back of his performance against Ebenezer Tete, especially unlike in the way that Ebenezer Tete was dispatched by Fraser Clark. AJXNI says, Dillian White damn near ruined his career. He don't make big fights. There's a lot of people he can fight. I still want to see him versus Ruiz. That would have been a brilliant fight a few years back. Absolutely. Just never materialized and never happened. Dillian White looked to wait for that Tyson Fury opportunity for the WBC title. He got it, and he wasn't on the winning end of that one, unfortunately, for the body snatcher. Iggy Goes Pop says, no to Eubank versus Ben, Jr. and Senior. That's the rematch. And no to the rematch between Eubank Jr. and Ben, and no to Eubank Ben, both of them, the elder statesman, getting back in the ring. So that's a categorical no from Iggy Pop. Remember, there is a poll to vote in. And currently, as the poll stands, you have yes with 41% and no to 59%. So we'll see how those poll votes square out by the end of the show. Moving on to our next topic. For the back of this weekend's action over in the US, there was the talk, and this happens in boxing best laid plans, that Jamal Charlo would take on Caleb Plant. But Jamal Charlo got his win over Thomas Cornflake Lamana in that fight. Didn't seem all too interested by that offering, but got the victory nonetheless. Lamana was pulled out of his corner, I believe, in the 5th or 6th round. And Caleb lost to Resendez. Resendez looked a real good prospect, and he's not a prospect, but a real good prospect off the back of defeating Caleb Plant. But Caleb drops down the ladder and looks like he drops out of that fight with Jamal Charlo, when that fight had history off the back of the slap that took place backstage at a show. Josh, did you catch this or any of this, or even the thought of Jamal Charlo and Caleb Plant? Caleb was seen not so long ago in fights against Benavidez and Canelo, maybe those two big fights, and when you've made your money, take that bit out of you, take that desire out of you. He's always been someone who's not got the biggest of pop, but can put his punches together and got a lot of heart as well too. And Jamal was looking for a lot after a lot of time outside the ring, dealing with a lot of things outside the ring, looking to land a big fight, and it's not going to be Canelo for now. His brother got that opportunity, and Canelo came through that one. But did you catch any of this weekend's action? What did you think of those two fighters in their recent fights?
I wasn't able to catch any of it live, as it was just an hour that I couldn't fathom staying awake until. But I've seen all the reaction, I've seen clips and whatnot from it all. For Caleb Plant, it's quite a shocking defeat, really. It's one of those fights where it was the two semi-finals and you go to a final, obviously getting the two against each other. I've always said it's such a risky thing to do, doing things like that, because even though you could put him in there with the worst fighter on the planet, but if it's not your day, it's not your day, and you're going to come up short, and that's exactly what's happened. So yeah, Caleb's obviously said that he is still interested in facing Jamal Charlo, but is Charlo going to have that same interest? Probably not. But I also remember reading that Caleb said that there is a rematch clause as well. So I'm sure he'll look to try and get his one back to earn himself a fight with Jamal Charlo. Yeah, just disappointing. It's this because it's a good fight. It's a fight that would have had a good build-up. We know what Caleb Plant and Jamal Charlo offer. So it's just disappointing to see, even on the split decision. But the one clip that keeps playing through in my mind is that 6th round where we see Caleb Plant in all sorts of trouble. How he got through that, I'm not too sure. But yeah, disappointing to see. Hopefully, we can see a rematch for Caleb Plant to try and get his one back over Resendez. As for Jamal Charlo, I'm not really too sure what to do next. Obviously, Canelo's out the picture for now, and that's always probably the big money fight when you're looking around those types of names. So interesting to see what's going to go down over the next few months. But I think the big takeaway from this is that Caleb Plant should probably go for the rematch with Resendez and definitely try and get one back on him.
I feel like it would have been a good opportunity for those two to meet because we're looking for opponents for Canelo, and certainly Hamza Shiraz has been pitched as one of those opponents, and he's looking to dispatch a former opponent of Canelo Alvarez in Edgar Berlanga to set up that opportunity. Certainly that opportunity would have been set up if he'd captured the title against the middleweight title, that is, against Carlos Adames, but that wasn't to be. But looking for those opponents for Canelo Alvarez, and he seems to have dispatched of most of the division. But that would have been a good opportunity for Jamal to put himself into the picture if he'd come through with the victory over, if Caleb Plant had come through and then they could set that up. Maybe they'd look for other fights to make. But I wonder if you saw that it ended up being a real good value fight between Bek Melikuziev and Darius Fulgham. Josh, did you catch any of that? That was a real good fight, and I implore any fight fan to check that out. It had the ingredients to be like a real good fight of the year contender, but just a little bit of, I guess, inaccuracy, a little less cuteness, a little less, more. It had too much roughness around the edges to be that real contender for it, but it was a real good fight to check back. I don't know if you saw that, Josh.
Was that the one on Friday night as well? I was watching Khaleel Co versus Gallegos too. Instead, I had that card on. But I've read about the fight you're talking of, and a lot of people saying it was a really good fight. I've even seen people say perfect scorecards as well, which is very rare to see when you talk about scorecards. So no, I've not got a lot to say on that one. So I haven't seen it. But I'll be sure to go check it out after this because from everything I've seen and read about it, it does sound like it was a very good fight. So I'll definitely check it out.
What do you think of Khaleel Co? Because he made Gallegos look nothing like the first fight.
I was very, very impressed. Again, talking to people about it, a lot of people were going for a repeat. Even when you looked at the bookies odds as well, they were slowly starting to lean towards it, looking like they were back in the repeat as well. But Khaleel Co just silenced absolutely everyone, a flawless display, and exactly what he needed to do really to get rid of the doubters after the first fight they had back in November on the Boots Ennis undercard. I've always been impressed with Khaleel Co as a fighter. He's always been someone that I've always had that excitement to watch him. So seeing him take that defeat last year, I was kind of like, oh, it's not great. You know, there's going to be a lot of question marks around him now because he got dominated in that first fight, but he went into enemy territory and did the exact same thing back. Gave Gallegos a taste of his own medicine with that pure domination. And yeah, reminded of everyone that he is that guy. Not that guy, obviously. There's a lot of better fighters, but showing that he's got that potential still and he can go to the top of the sport. So I was thoroughly impressed with Khaleel Co. Very, very impressed.
What about the options for Canelo Alvarez? I was there in the ringside for the fight in Saudi Arabia against William Skull, and those scorecards were a lot closer than a lot of people thought they would be. And it was a case of sometimes Skull made Canelo miss, but didn't make him pay enough. But you're looking through the super middleweight contenders and those who could fight, and he's fought Caleb Plant already. He's done that. He's fought Edgar Berlanga. He's fought William Skull. He's fought Jaime Munguia. We'll talk about Munguia in our final segment of the show this week. But he's fought a lot of these fighters. Who really is there? Do you feel that it's going to give him that big test outside of a lot of talk of fights that could happen for him? And of course, he's locked in with Terence Crawford, but David Benavidez is one of them. Do you see and do you want to see him in with Jacob Pacheco, like Christian and Billy? That Oslis Iglesias look to be a hell of a talent as well too. Hamza Shiraz is one as well. Who sits at the top of your list from a super middleweight perspective?
If all goes well on July 19th for Diego Pacheco, I'd like to see him get his opportunity. I've always been quite high on Diego Pacheco as a fighter, and he's Pacheco's in a real tough fight on July 19th on the BAM undercard against Trevor McCombie. Is it McCombie? Yeah. But that's a really, really tough fight. Just looking through BoxRec now, the super middleweight division. One thing you start to realise when you look through it is that Canelo's kind of beat them all. Really, there's not too many tests left there. Obviously, Hamza Shiraz, but he's got to come through Edgar Berlanga first, which is definitely not an easy fight. I think David Benavidez will always be at the top of the list. I think everyone wants to see Canelo and David Benavidez lock horns, but I don't think we see that fight anymore. So from an actual super middleweight perspective, if Hamza's to beat Edgar Berlanga, I'd like to see Hamza get the shot at Canelo again. If Canelo's to beat Terence Crawford, but if not, then I'd like to see Diego Pacheco get his shot, because I think this fight he's got here on July 19th, it's that final stepping stone until world level. He's kind of gone through those levels and beat everyone the way he should. So one more test now, and then I feel like it's time to let him off the leash, give him Canelo, and see if he can cause him any problems, because many have tried and many have failed now at super middleweight. So maybe there might be someone out there, and Diego Pacheco could be that guy.
Diego Pacheco might be that guy, but are we the guys? Michael Maloney is questioning whether we are the guys, and he says, have either of these two boxed? I doubt it. Well, we're about to rest your doubts and put them to ease, as Josh is about to reveal his fighting history. You might not catch him on BoxRec, but you can catch him on YouTube. Josh, was it a winning effort? I can't remember.
It was a winning effort that was robbed away from me at the last second. Over a year on now, still losing sleep over it every night. The robbery that took place in Cotgrave Welfare Centre, as I stepped into the ring for 3 whole rounds, put on a beautiful display of boxing, really. Thought I'd done enough. Thought, I've proven it now. I've proven I can fight. And then the referee just decided to raise both of our hands instead of mine only. So it got called as a draw. But I've got history in the ring, thank you very much. What was the guy's name again? Michael Maloney? Yeah, that's right, Michael. That's right. Yeah. I don't want to hear this, non-boxers. Ayman, I know you do a lot of training as well. You might have not been in the ring, but you're around that environment all the time, aren't you?
Josh, that draw that you had with the other fella, you might have had Raheem screaming, boxing wins, boxing wins. It's not all about the winner and loser. It's about boxing winning as a whole. And that robbery that took place will be talked about for many years by you, but it'll be talked about.
Yeah, only by me. No one else is going to be talking about it. It's only going to be me. But I'm going to let people know. Joe, I'm going to go run it back this year. I'm going to go back just before Christmas, catch me in the ring again, and I'm getting my one back. And if I lose, I'm not going to make any promises on what's going to happen, because I don't know what the result's going to be. But stay tuned. Get ready to empty your pockets and donate to my charity cause I'm going to raise money for, because I will fight again, and I will get a win this time.
Wait a minute. Are you announcing your return to the ring on Seconds Out Live?
It's not official yet. I'm still waiting the contract to come through. Obviously, I want to make sure the rehydration clause in the broadcaster is nailed down to a T to suit me and what I want. So once we've got all that sorted out, I'll be back.
There you have it. The unofficial, official announcement from Josh. What's your nickname?
Can we get a poll for that for next week's live? Because
No.
I still don't have one. I don't have one. I don't have a nickname.
The barrier for entry for a poll is low, but it's not that low.
Oh, fucking hell. Come on, Ayman, that's just disrespectful now.
Well, you got to give some. What are the potential nicknames?
The Heart Attack. I don't know.
Josh, the Heart Attack Hart. Terrible. Next.
See, you got the Hitman, but I think that's boring. Everyone's had the Hitman.
It's a workable one.
Yeah, but it's like there's not a lot that goes with Heart. Like, Heart Attack, that's pretty cool, but you don't like it. The Hitman's boring. Nothing rhymes with J. There's nothing good that can go next to Joshua. So, I don't know. That's why I tend to just go with my own name instead.
Josh, break your
Heart. I like that. Ayman, straight away. You've come with one suggestion that's better than every single other one I've heard. That's the one I'm going for. Thank you very much. No poll needed. Poll cancelled.
Poll not needed, but maybe people can put their contributions in the chat as well and offer some nicknames for Josh. I can guarantee you that the worst one will be backed by myself. So get those terrible takes in, and I will be sure to put those to Josh. That's for sure. We'll go back into the chat before we move on to our final topic. Just quickly on Michael. Whenever people say you've got to box to talk about the sport, certainly I disagree with that completely. And we at Seconds Out, of course, take the sport very, very seriously. And when it comes to conversations or contributions to the sport, I'd say that if you're at a pub and you were having a pint and you couldn't talk about football because you never played at the level that your favorite football team or favorite football player has played at, then there'll be certainly a lot less conversations happening at the local pub, and it'd be a much more boring place. So I'm very much all for those type of conversations. Michael comes back, maybe he was just saying in jest, saying, tired of non-boxers giving opinions on sport of the clean. Come on, Michael. Come on. Casual opinion at one point. Okay, Michael, you're very much free to continue watching or set up your own channel and talk about whatever you like.
How many fights has Michael had? That's what I want to know. How many fights have you had, Michael?
Here we go. Well, Michael could possibly be in the opposite corner to you, Josh. I think we've got a fight brewing, a fight stirring, potentially.
Oh, I don't know. Let me see how many fights he's had first. I want to know how many fights he's had, because I'm all about health and safety, as we know, Ayman. When talking about the Eubank Sr stuff earlier, we know I'm very much for health and safety.
Well, I'm up for this fight between you and Michael if I get ringside access.
If he's had 41 amateur fights, Ayman, I'm staying clear for now. I think we have to stay clear on this one.
World champion. Anyway, Martin Mulligan says, so only boxers allowed opinions on boxing bollocks. There you go. No such thing as a draw in amateurs, must be white collar rubbish. Don't. There's no reason to completely hate on white collar. And certainly one of our topics of discussion today was Fabio Wally in against Justice Hooney, who went the white collar route as their so-called amateur experience. And look at him now. So I guess that kind of deflates your opinion there, Michael. But if you got anything good to offer, I'll be certain to read it out. Capital Commodity says Chris Eubank Jr. is 100% returning to boxing, but definitely not in the ring. The Eubanks are probably the greatest promoters in the UK. Eubank Jr. promoted his fight with Ben Eubank Promotions for sure. Interesting take. I don't know how much interest Eubank Jr. or Senior have in fights outside of their own familial interests. Certainly, I don't think I've seen Eubank really show an interest in that. I'm very much happy to have been proved wrong, but outside of their own familial interests, I don't think Eubanks really want to promote anything other than what they've got in-house. So want for a better phrase. Jack Dutton on the 45 says, Mike says it's like a labourer telling an electrician how to wire a house. No, it's not, because we're not telling boxers how to throw punches or whatever. We're just talking about the lay of the land in terms of boxing as a whole. Jack Dutton on the 45 says, will be hard for Plant to come back after Saturday. Capital Commodities offers Josh the Damager Hart. Lol. You like that one?
No, there's no real ring to it. I'm not a big fan of that one. Apologies.
Josh the Damager Hart now vaults to the top of the list because Josh isn't a fan of it. So it's a good offering from Capital Commodities. Iggy Goes Pop says, Josh the Knee Trembler Hart. What do we think about that one?
I don't know. Does that mean I'm not knocking him out? Does that mean I'm just trembling the knees, but I'm not quite able to get the finish? Because if so, it's not really what I'm about. So I like that one though. That could work. That could work.
How about Josh? Like, he's here, Hart. He's here. How about that?
I don't know. I feel like I'm putting a lot of pressure on myself by having such a name like that. I feel like, if you hear that type of nickname, you think, oh, those guys like coming to steal the show, and then I put on like just a 3-round jab fest and not engage in any type of actual fight and just stay on the back foot. So yeah, I don't know about that one.
The decision machine. He's here would be like a brilliant soundbite to come out to. He's here, and then you walk out. That'd be
yeah. I mean, I feel a lot of people would be let down. Imagine if it was like a mystery opponent. Just here, he's here, and then you're thinking like, oh, who could this be? And it's just me. Yeah.
Michael Maloney comes back. He said the 41 amateurs, and he says you probably think women's is quality. I do think women are quality. Love women. Capital Commodity says when Eubank Jr. crashed that egg on Connor's face, the pay-per-view numbers skyrocketed. The Eubanks are one of the greatest showmen and promoters in boxing. So promotion, yes. Boxing, hell no. Yeah, unconfirmed. Well, no, I think figures did come out, but I believe that in the conversations I had with people close to Sky Sports, They had said that the estimations they had for Eubank Jr. versus Ben pay-per-view, had certainly been more than cleared and further. So they were very happy with that. What else has been said? Thunder Road says, less than 10 likes, chat, hit the thumbs up. Certainly do. Would much appreciate the thumbs up. Capital Commodity says, you're missing the point, mate. If the Eubanks are promoting their own fighters, then yes, they'll bring personality and energy to their promotion game. No, I get that. That's a fair point. Fair play. If they got them signed to them and then they have their own, I guess, business interest, that might interest them more than just a familial tie. So fair play, a fair point. Eddie Hills says, Josh Bando Dweller Hart.
I don't know what to say on that one, Ayman. I have no words. I'm utterly baffled by it. So we can put it at the top of the list, please.
What's a Bando Dweller?
I actually don't know myself. I actually have no clue what a Bando Dweller is.
Bando. There was a song a couple of years back when I was in uni. Busy in the Bando. Remember that one?
No, I actually don't know what you're on about.
Busy
there,
in the Bando. Do you remember that one?
Well, Ayman, what year was it when you were in uni?
It wasn't that long ago. It was 2000. It was about 10 years ago. Damn.
So 2015, we're talking.
So a bando apparently is slang for a trap house.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's what a bando is. But I don't know how am I a bando dweller.
We'll leave that for another episode of Seconds Out Live. Thunder Road says, "It's Declan Rice number 6 for the Three Lions. Don't think it's his doppelganger."
He's talking about my shirt number. No, wrong side.
You do look a bit like Phil Foden.
I really don't see it. I don't see it.
Timu Phil Foden.
Right, that's outrageous, Ayman. I'm going to be raising this now in the next meeting we have as a team. I don't feel welcome here anymore after being told I'm a Timu Phil Foden. That's outrageous. No one's even seen me on the pitch. What if I'm better than Phil Foden?
You're definitely not better than Phil Foden. Josh, make sure you win, mate. The fans will give you a name. The fans will give you a name. The idea of Josh Hart having fans is very, very interesting. But all the better for you, Josh. So don't worry yourself too much about all that. How Not to Play says, how about Glass, Josh?
So, Josh Glass Hart. Yeah. No. Sorry.
And Michael Maloney says, and this will be the last one I'll be offering from Michael Maloney. Says, never met dudes like you in the boxing gym. Well, Michael, I'm in McCracken's gym pretty much 3 times a week. Watching all the boxers from whatever level they are make it their way from the amateurs to professionals. White collars are in there. All sorts of people are in there. Boxing is for the community, not just for people of any particular shape or size, creed or color. It's for everyone. And I'd certainly champion that as opposed to any particular persons walking through the door. Certainly everyone is welcome at that gym, and I'm sure boxing as a whole embodies that spirit. But moving on to our final, and one thing that certainly myself and Josh don't like to see in the sport is Ayman Mungir's latest development, and that is a positive test has come out and surfaced off the back of his fight with Bruno Siras. It was a rematch with Bruno Siras after Bruno scored a brilliant, I believe it was Knockout of the Year, award-winning knockout. They rematched in Saudi Arabia on the Canelo Undercard, and off the back of that, Ayman Mungir tested positive. This is what he said in the wake of that. He said, throughout my boxing career, I've undergone numerous anti-doping tests and have never tested positive. I was tested twice during this camp, and both results came back negative, which is why receiving this notification of an adverse finding has been a complete surprise to me. Several experts have explained that there are multiple ways contamination can occur, and I'm fully willing to undergo any retroactive, current, or future testing to demonstrate that I've always been a clean athlete. I will not make any further comments on this matter until the process is concluded with the results of the B sample. So that's what Ayman Mungir has stated. And of course, every fighter is welcome to due process and has the opportunity to prove that they weren't or didn't have any contaminated substances or any substances for that matter of fact in their system. It is, I'd start off by saying it's a shame when boxing is drawn into this direction of news. It's good in the sense that these things are being caught and these, whether it be a ban or at least the information is coming out for boxing, because certainly drugs and cheating in any form has no place in the sport, with it being such a dangerous sport. But it would be a shame to think that Jaime Munguia in this last fight or other fights would have been on substances to help him perform or help him get the victory. He has opportunity to prove that that's not the case. Contamination seems to be something that's been used as a reason as to why you never really see boxers or sports people, I guess, admit to their positive tests. He has the opportunity to prove that, but the burden is on him now. It falls upon him to prove that that wasn't the case, and certainly not to state that it was, or to prove that a contamination did occur. Those things can occur, but whether that was likely is on Jaime Munguia to now provide the reasons for. So we wait and see what the situation is with Jaime Munguia's B sample when that comes, and the likelihood, although we don't know it to be the case, but in these situations are that they do come back the same way that the first test came. But what do you think about Jaime Munguia's positive tests, and just in general, where fighters have tested positive, which seems to be a common occurrence in recent years?
I think it's very disappointing, especially with this one with Jaime Munguia. And I'm not saying that he is 100% guilty, but it's just very suspicious to see that he fails one in a rematch after such a shocking loss of his career, the first fight he had with Sarah. So I'd like to hope that it is a mistake and that he is a clean fighter. But it's just really disappointing to see, and it's happening far too often now. You know, we saw it with Dennis McCann just before his scheduled fight with Peter McGrath. I'm sure there's ones this year that probably not like in my mind right now. Obviously, you know, we all know about the big case we had with Conor Benn that went on for years upon years, really. It's just disappointing to see. It puts the sport in a really bad light, but controversy is always the thing that sells in this sport. So, you know, while we saw some really good things at the weekend happen in the ring, the thing we're mainly going to be talking about for now is another failed drug test and what's going to happen from here and in. So, disappointing, but it is what it is. The sport moves very quickly. The boxing world is always ever moving. So, we won't be dwelling on this for too long. Hopefully, we can just get a conclusive outcome and clarity on the situation as soon as possible.
Jump into the chat for one final time before we have our conclusive outcome on the poll regarding the return to the ring for Eubank Sr. Thunder Road says, Bando, short-term slang for abandoned like trap house. There you go. The knowledge, Thunder Road, much appreciated. Did you speak about Conor Benn or Dillian White? I don't think you know the track record then of Seconds Out, Michael, because you wouldn't be asking that question if you watch Seconds Out. Myself, Danny Flexen, Raheem, Josh Hart, Josh Green, a number of us, whenever it came to these situations, we've certainly asked the questions where we can ask them and have done so. So I guess you need to watch more of Seconds Out, and you're welcome to do so. Careful, Frank and Eddie watching. Certainly not afraid of any repercussions to speak about the sport plainly and honestly. Jack Dutton says, it does make you wonder, though. Garcia looks so explosive and powerful against Haney, but looks so comparatively toothless against Romero, for example. And Michael Malone comes back with something sensible and says, ban them for life. It's a combat sport. They should be responsible for what they put in their body. Strict liability is what he's alluding to, which was alluded also to in the Conor Benn case. But let's put those matters to aside for one final time as we close out the show and get a close in on the poll. Frank Trevitt behind the scenes, can you close and shut the poll? No more last minute votes for. We asked you if you wanted to see Eubank Sr. return to the ring. Josh, as I deliver out the results, you're going to get the final word. So think about the final word on Seconds Out Live for this week. As is customary, you get that final word. And the results are as follows. No takes the victory, with 64% of you guys saying that you do not want to see Chris Eubank Sr. back in action, glitzing and gliding through to the ring, jumping over and vaulting over the ropes to the amazement of the crowd, 64% of you don't want to see it, leaving 35% of you saying you'd like to see a return of Eubank Sr. in some form. That is it for this week's Seconds Out Live. I'll just leave you by saying thank you to everyone for contributing. Even Michael Maloney, you're welcome as well too. But click the like button, make sure you subscribe if you haven't already, and leave your comments in the chat if you're not tuning in live. We'll get to as many of them as we can. We'll be across all the week's action coming to you from Ipswich for Fabio Wardley versus Justice Hooney in the heavyweights, and in Barnsley as well too for Callum Simpson versus Zuko. 2 stadium shows in the UK, and anything else that crops up in between. Josh Kelly versus Bayer as well is happening in Newcastle, so do keep tuned for that. But Josh, the final word, Josh Knee Trembler, Josh Glass, Josh Bando Dweller Hart, what would you like to leave Seconds Out Live with for this week?
I'd just like to say thank you everyone for tuning in as always. Good to end my absence and be back this week ahead of such a big week in the sport, especially domestically, with some brilliant shows going on up and down the country. Obviously here at Seconds Out, we'll be delivering all the content to you as quick as possible, and not just as quick as possible, but the best interviews as well. And we look forward to that. We look forward to the fights this weekend, and thank you all for watching, and we'll see you all this time next week.